Breaktime, a podcast presented by the Prescott-Russell Employment Services Center, welcomes Doreen Ashton Wagner, founder of Business Sisters, to discuss the founding and evolution of the organization, the key qualities needed to succeed in business, and the many challenges one must overcome to reach success. Welcome to Breaktime, Doreen.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you. Now, if I understand correctly, you created a group called Business Sisters.
Yes, I did.
When was that?
I guess officially it would have been sometime in just before the pandemic. But so it was fairly recently.
Fairly recent.
Fairly recently. But the very first event that we held that was called the Business Sisters Conference was in fall of 2018 in Alexandria.
Okay.
So that was the inaugural event. We didn't know really what we were going to do with the organization as a network, as a social enterprise eventually. But this became the launching pad when we got together, about 90 women that got together at that particular event. Various women business owners, entrepreneurs from not only Alexandria and area, but we reached throughout Prescott-Russell, SDNG, even as far as Kingston, women that joined us for that particular conference. So
the name is pretty self-explanatory, but still, what did you have in mind when you started this? What was your goal, short-term, long-term? What do you want to accomplish?
It was interesting because I'll back up a little bit.
Go for it.
I'd been a business owner, had my own company since 1998.
Okay.
Based in Alexandria. We were a business services firm that did lead generation. And I sold a company to an employee actually in November of 2016. Worked with her for a while. And this was a partnership, used to be a partnership between my husband and I. So it was a family enterprise. But between 2016 and 2018, I didn't really know, what the heck am I going to do when I grow up, right? So it was so I was kind of dabbling a little bit doing contract work. And I came back to the realization that a lot of women business owners were operating in their own silos. We didn't know each other very well and so on. So part of the impetus behind doing that particular event was to bring people together. So there wasn't, it was kind of a little seed, but we didn't know what kind of, would it be a tree? Would it be a flower? Had no idea. But eventually it grew into the fact that we wanted to bring people together so that they could have conversations about business, about creating a business, about running a business, and also about the fact that, and using the word business sisters, because the word entrepreneur, which, I was raised francophone, so entrepreneur, c'est quelqu'un qui fait quelque chose, somebody who does something.
Yes.
But in English, entrepreneur, you ask anyone, name some entrepreneurs, some famous entrepreneurs, and you'll have,
business owners.
You'll have Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, and they tend to be male. They're big and powerful and have large companies, and women often don't identify with that. They'll say, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a shopkeeper. I'm a cafe owner. I'm a farmer. I'm whatever it is. Or they'll identify with the profession. I'm a foot care nurse.
I see.
And so Business Sisters came out of the idea that it's kind of a family. And a business sister can be a sister to a business brother. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it began from the point of view of bringing women business owners together so that we could learn from one another, as opposed to, I guess, a coaching model where, there's someone who's going to give you all the answers from the top of the mountain, because they know it all. Yeah, that's not the case. It's peer-to-peer learning. Yeah. Peer-to-peer support. So that was the idea behind the first event, which now has grown a little bit more formally into a social enterprise about it.
Okay, well, perfect. And speaking of that, like, how did it evolve exactly? Like, we talked about a first event, the
Yeah.
context behind it, the goal of that event, and that was maybe 3, 4 years ago now. And
Yes. Yeah.
what is the state of Business Sisters now, and how did it get there? How did it evolve?
So there was the original conference that took place, and then from there we developed monthly events, des
Ah,
5 à 7. So
okay.
monthly networking events that we held in different areas. From our last one, as a matter of fact, was in February of 2020, just before the pandemic,
Oh man.
at Tuc de Brou in
Yeah.
Emploi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Love those
So
guys.
we always we tended to pick emplacement, the locations. See,
Yeah.
every once in a while, the French seeps in, right?
That's great.
So
No
we
problem.
picked up locations, picked locations that were couple owned or women
Oh,
owned.
okay.
And Nicolas and Margot in at Suc de Brou
Mm-hmm.
were, it was, great little shop. And so we had, that was probably our biggest 5 à 7. There was about almost 50 people there.
Oh.
And
Hmm.
so it grew from, the annual conference and then to monthly events, so that people from different parts of the region could get together.
Mm-hmm.
Another goal of mine that I felt was really important is the women of SDNG, Alexandria, where I come from, for instance, don't know the women business owners of Ancliquil or Embrun or Russell or
Mm.
Hawkesbury or Larignal and so on.
Yeah.
So it was as if the 417 was a wall.
Right.
And because very often also our municipal organizations and economic development operate that way. So it's kind of normal, but we need to move beyond border. Why can't business owners collaborate, from different regions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of it. And we started noticing that in Embrun, for instance, we had people from Cornwall that drove up and, came to the event. So that was another part. It evolved that way. And then another part of the evolution very much was going towards bilingualism. We
Oh.
were typically operating as business sisters en anglais,
Mm-hmm.
and we created, from the beginning, it was called Concert en Affaires.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up envisioning a completely francophone conference, which should have taken place in April of 2020.
Yeah.
So obviously we know that what happened there,
Yeah.
but it's always been the vision to continue francophone events as well. So we're a little bit in wait and see mode when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
this year,
Yes.
or 2022, I should say. It's amazing to me. It's like 2 years later, and
Yeah.
we were going to be in Saint Isidore
Mm.
with that conference. So that we're continuing that. In addition, we held online events like Zoom
Right.
networking sessions. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, what it was, we would have a theme. For instance, business owners who were in hairdressing, aesthetics, like personal services like
Okay.
that. And I mean, this was at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody was freaking out and
Right.
not having access to PPE, and what are
Mm.
you doing and what are your protocols for
Yeah.
disinfection and all that stuff. So we got people together on Zooms, and it literally exchanging information,
Yeah.
saying, okay, I got my masks from here, and what are
Mm-hmm.
you doing? And oh my goodness, in Quebec, they're already reopening or looking at reopen. It's not fair. And what
Yeah.
can we do here in Ontario and stuff like that? So it was peer-to-peer exchange. I wasn't there to tell, a hairstylist how to run their salon. It was very much them having conversations
Yeah.
online together.
Right.
So so that's more or less how it evolved, and there wasn't any um, program or register for this to learn, courses or training of any kind. It was more between business
Yeah.
owners.
Real exchange.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a membership-based organization?
Not even right now. It's there's no cost to belong. you sign up for the e-newsletter on our website,
Right.
what is it? business-sisters.ca or concert affaires.ca.
Okay.
Or on Facebook and so on. We're looking at different ways now going forward. There's some big plans in the making to officially make this more of a training organization, but not to compete or supplement what may be done
No,
by
no.
other organizations in that sense, but to advance the entrepreneurial knowledge, the comfort with financial literacy, investment, growth, but also personal resilience, personal management. And for women, a huge reality of what came out of the pandemic is managing home,
Yes.
children, education, and all that goes around it, and still managing their business.
Yes.
It's not to to create a gender war or anything like that, but
No.
moms seem to be more entrenched in what's happening with the family's health, the family's the children's education and everything else. So there's been some real balance issues in that way.
Yeah.
And unless we have those conversations around in business about mental health and personal resilience, then we're only scratching the surface. It's only the very superficial
No, I
stuff.
agree.
Yeah.
I really do. I spent a few years working freelance and helping out this business with my friends, and yeah, I understand that resilience aspect. I mean, yeah, everyone has to have a certain amount of resiliency, right? No matter what your job is, but when you are responsible, like completely responsible for your own income and quite possibly the income of people that are working for you, that resiliency takes on a much different form, a bigger form, a more tangible one. And
Yeah.
I think it's really a good idea to focus on that and to create a community that has lived through it with various successes and challenges, and share that experience to make sure that people become more resilient and literate in this small stuff like just basic bookkeeping.
Yeah.
I learned that a few years ago for the first time, like basic bookkeeping skills for personal and small business.
Mhm.
One of the most useful things I've ever learned. What was once cloaked in shadow and strange and like not clear became very logical, very fast.
Yeah.
That's a very useful skill to have, and I think that's good training
Life
to get.
skills,
Yeah,
very often, because whether a business owner is in the trades, for
yeah,
instance, plumbing, electrician,
hmm
roofing, etc., well, you need to be able to really understand, what's the bottom line,
hmm
and how come, we've earned all this money, but I'm cash poor. I don't have enough
yes,
cash in my account to make
hmm
payroll next week, that sort of thing, and the
hmm
understanding of cash flow management and so on. It's interesting you say that, because part of everybody talks about the good old pivoting, right, during the pandemic and all that stuff.
right,
But one of the things I ended up doing, I mean, obviously, Business Sisters was for me a bit of a passion project, and I was still consulting and all that stuff, but events were dead. What are you going to do?
right,
You know? And aside from, continuing to pay the bills and so on, I took on a contract with an economic development agency based out of Cornwall,
okay,
um, covering SDNG and that specific territory. But through that, I was able my job was business support advisor for COVID-19
oh,
programs. What I noticed was that, I mean, we had business owners that were very involved with their business and so on, but were completely paralyzed in front of these, frankly, very time-consuming application processes
Oh, man.
for, wage subsidies to even, the Main Street
Yeah.
businesses that were applying for some of the subventions, what do you say, grants
Right.
from the province, etc. And the language of
Oh.
those was difficult.
Yes.
It became very clear that if a business owner at the very early part of the pandemic didn't have a business checking account, they were locked out. That changed. Then it became clear that if their paperwork didn't match up, I had one business owner, for instance, that on her checking account, she had her name with her middle name as an initial, and her business registration was fully spelt out. And then
Yeah.
there was another part of the paperwork, it didn't match.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't get paid.
Yep.
So it was those difficulties that, without having conversations with people, they were overwhelmed
Yeah.
with
You
information.
won't figure it out.
Exactly. So it's bringing people together to have those conversations. And also with the mental health support, just knowing that you're not the only ones struggling
Yeah.
with this sort of thing, because they would automatically look at a form and say, well, I must be stupid. I can't figure this out. I don't understand
Yes.
what this means. And so to have someone explain it
Mm-hmm.
in plain terms, or also saying, you're not the only one going through this sort of thing.
Yes.
It doesn't solve the problem, but it often makes you feel better. We're all human. And even before the pandemic, actually, the Canadian Mental Health Association had come out with a study that indicated the stress of business ownership was heavy. And unfortunately, one of the highest rates of suicide is with entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
business owners.
Overwhelmed.
Can't make payroll, this and that. And the feeling of responsibility
Yes.
towards their employees. I know that my husband and I, at one point in our business, when we had, at our peak, 23 employees, including ourselves, it felt like we didn't have just one mortgage.
Why? Yeah, exactly.
We had 21 mortgages
Yeah.
or rent, or, we couldn't just say, well, our client hasn't paid us in 90 days, but sorry, you can't get your paycheck this week. Ça marche pas comme ça, là. You can't do that. So it's that aspect, and realizing what some of the difficulties are. And also, I think part of it is if we normalize and open up those conversations, because right now in entrepreneurship, there's often I believe, the feeling that you've got to be perfect. You got to have it happening, and everything's cool. I'm making money, etc. A lot of that is gloss, and it's not reality. We need to normalize, in my opinion, the mistakes that we make,
The struggle.
the setbacks. Not to say, oh, feel sorry for me. No. But to learn from each other's mistakes, and to hear that someone from the, at one of our events from the stage shared some difficulties, or even just said, there was one particular moment at our last conference. One of the women who was probably most revered in terms of, she had been on Dragon's Den, and her business was right up there, and from the area. And she shared the fact that she never had a business plan to begin with. She said, honestly, I went out and bought the Business Plan for Dummies book. And we all kind of went, what? Really? But hearing that from someone who had made it okay. A, not to have a business plan, or B, not to have any clue as to what to put in a business plan.
Yeah.
So that was important and continues to be important, I think, to help entrepreneurs.
Yeah. To know that perfection is not on the table here in any way. There isn't this perfect formula on how to start a successful business. The struggle is real. It will not stop.
No.
It will not stop.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think perfection is often the enemy of entrepreneurship.
Yes. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't think it exists, but striving for it too much
Yep.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
So funny sidebar in that sense. I went back to school to do my master's degree in 2018 when I was
Okay.
still trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do when I grow up,
Around
right?
the time Business
So
Sister started.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Okay.
back at school at age 56, it's like, okay, kind of interesting. Um,
Yeah, cool.
but probably one of the most useful courses that I took, and it was very much to study
Hmm.
entrepreneurship. And I learned about the theory of effectuation.
Oh, explain that to
So I
me.
know it sounds very, foreboding and complicated, but it's basically um, this one researcher went and interviewed some high-powered entrepreneurs and gave them each a scenario to read
Hmm.
and learn about a fictitious set of resources and circumstances,
Okay.
and then to verbalize what would they do with it, what kind of business would
Oh,
they
I love that idea.
create.
That's a very interesting
Okay.
exercise.
So the study eventually identified the fact that the most successful entrepreneurs in that cohort essentially just tried stuff.
Yeah.
And they were interviewed over several, like a certain period of time. And effectuation in entrepreneurship is just trying something
Hmm.
and figuring it out, tinkering almost with an idea and a concept and making it better. So
Yes.
even on shows like Dragon's Den, you know, when they say, have you made any sales? Have you talked to customers?
Hmm.
That's so important in entrepreneurship is not having the perfect business plan to start.
No.
It's actually to make sales, try it out, um, figure out from your customer what is it that they want, and making it better, involving your employees
Hmm.
and saying, okay, instead of, oh, I'm the boss, I know everything, asking your employees, what do you think we should do with this? Or what do you see? And really making that much more of a collaboration.
Yes.
And that was one of the theories, because there's a lot of theories of entrepreneurship.
Of
Everybody
course.
wants to figure it out
Hmm.
and see what the silver bullet is, and there isn't any.
Yeah. Good luck to you all.
Exactly. So interestingly, it is about that creative, iterative process
Yeah.
over it's baby steps. It's not often huge leaps, and it's not based on a plan,
Hmm.
or maybe you have a plan, you just revise it and go back to it all the time.
Yeah. And to be able to do that successfully, I believe. And this is one quality I think is really useful in business when it's handled well. Humility.
Hmm.
Ha- Handled well.
Yeah.
You can't be too humble.
Yeah.
That will not serve you well. But just enough to be inspired by the idea of reinventing
Yes.
yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think you need a certain amount of humility to be able to do that successfully. If not, you will always think that you are perfect and on top of everything, which
Yeah.
is not the right way to do
That's
things.
right.
And that is a very interesting exercise. I love it. How to interpret a set of rules, data, whatever, concrete
Hmm.
things, resources, and trying something. You can
Hmm.
calculate how long does it take you to try something. Are you going to spend too much time thinking about it, which would probably be my issue.
Are you an
And
overthinker?
yes,
You are.
yes,
Okay.
yes. That's why I need to surround myself with people that are less scared of life than me to be able to move faster.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, right? You need to. You talked about employees and collaboration. I think that is a word that should take more space in the workplace.
Absolutely.
People are having trouble hiring.
Mm.
It's hard to keep staff. With healthy collaboration, I believe, comes better retention in
Yeah.
terms of employees, right? Because that classic hierarchy will not work anymore.
Yeah.
People can't say, I'm the boss anymore. You can't say that.
Well, you can. You just might not have anybody who wants to work for you.
My philosophy on that, if you have
Yeah.
to tell me that you're the boss, then you are not the boss of anything. I don't think you should have to tell people that. It should be obvious in terms of knowledge, humility, flexibility, creativity, right? Drive. You should inspire people to want to collaborate with you.
Yeah.
And it's a great exercise. It's good philosophy.
It's I'm glad to hear you say that because it's interesting how I believe business and entrepreneurship, ownership, business ownership is changing. I do feel that it's something that, and some people may disagree with me, but that women often will tend to collaborate a little bit more freely because they have to. A woman
Oh,
in business, if she comes across as authoritarian, do it my way or the highway,
mm,
she's, uh, it's a word that starts with a B and ends at CH, right? It doesn't come across well.
I gotcha.
And often a man in the same role will possibly get away with that a little bit more. But I think not any longer. That era should be out the window. Number one, because it puts so much pressure on the business owner himself or herself
hmm
to be perfect,
Right.
which we know we're not. Collaboration at the same time can be more creative and certainly bring about more responsive solutions
hmm
in business for customers, etc. But it also takes more time. And that is,
Yeah.
I believe, what people forget, and they get frustrated with the process.
Mm.
That it takes too long to collaborate. It takes too long to ask, "What is your input?" And not everybody reacts the same way. Some people will be very extroverted and immediate in their feedback.
Yeah.
Others need to noodle it and think about it, right?
hmm
So that's and I'm an action oriented person. And that's what used to drive me crazy. It was
Mm.
like, "Ben voyons, it's
hmm
taking too long. Let's go. Come on, let's do
hmm
it." And um, maybe it's age because I've slowed down in my older years, but you realize that if you slow down a little bit and ask for more input, you identify your blind spots as a
Yeah.
business owner, and you can create something that's better. So I do believe that today's employee also wants to make a difference. They don't want to be a cog in the wheel.
hmm
No way. The younger generation that we're all trying to hire and court and bring to our businesses want to be involved. And it's been open to collaboration, but also to diversity
Yeah.
and diversity of not just culture and language and gender and everything else. It's also diversity of the ways we think,
True diversity.
true diversity.
Yeah.
And that enables us, I think, to explore more fully what solutions exist out there, in
hmm
whether it's a product or a service. So I think that's and we're seeing that in some of the research that I'm involved with. I'm working on a project currently with the University of Ottawa that specifically focuses on entrepreneurial training and education and how to make it more inclusive, equitable, and diverse. And that's at the school level, and how
hmm
do we formulate training programs or classes in education. But in the field with my other work, that's what continues to be part of the conversations we need to have is, yeah, that's fine in theory. What the heck does that look like in practice?
Yes.
And it is part of, I think, what we need to do in a region like Eastern Ontario, Prescott-Russell, SDNG, et cetera, is to have those conversations because we don't have often a lot of time and resources to learn the theoretical. But if we have conversations and open up, like
Mm.
this podcast is wonderful when people want to learn perhaps about different aspects of business and employment and community economic development. I think when they can learn about that, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
And hear about each other's stories.
We touched on it a bit. You gave an example, and I want to come back to it because I find it's a very fascinating subject, especially nowadays. Do you believe you told me that you believed that some of the key differences between men and women, let's say business owners, or in a boss position,
Yeah.
whatever boss means, that the gap is slowly shrinking a bit. Do you still believe that there's too many differences or not enough differences between male and female business owners? If so, what are those differences? Are they good? Are they not good? It's a tough question.
It's a tough and it's a loaded question.
I know it is, but I think it's a fun topic because and you know what? I'll rephrase. It can be a fun topic, I think.
Mhm.
A really interesting one. Sadly, it turns toxic too often.
Hmm.
But let's try to keep it positive and interesting and look at it more from like an academic point of view.
Yes. Okay. So I think there's different areas here. There's uh, the whole conversation around what is gender.
Right. Well,
The pink and the blue,
that has
little
changed
boys and little girls,
a lot.
right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think with work increasingly understanding what LGBTQ folks are going through
Mhm.
and understanding that aspect of diversity can really inform us as to why am I thinking this way? Or why am I feeling the pressure to do this?
Yeah,
So I'll take it back at a very personal level
go for it.
to start and then kind of maybe bring it a little bit more globally.
Okay.
One of the things that I observed personally in my life was being a business owner, and the company that we had, my husband and I, was very, and he'll say this himself, was my baby. It was my creation, my idea. I'm the ideas person, and he helped me very much carry it out.
Okay.
But I also felt the pressure of being a mom. One of the reasons I left my corporate job in Toronto was because I couldn't be the mom that I wanted to be to my 2-year-old.
Okay.
And so we moved back from Toronto, came back to Alexandria, and started the company. And I remember at one point feeling really struggling with the fact that my husband was, even though he was working with me in the company, he was often home with our daughter, more involved with her activities, possibly because I was busy with work. And being that he's a chef by trade,
Oh,
and I'm very, very, very fortunate,
yeah.
he was perfectly fine with cooking and doing the food shopping. So I didn't have that kind of pressure, but I felt guilty about it.
Oh.
And I remember picking up my daughter at Terre des Jeunes in Alexandria, and she was talking, this was in kindergarten, and she was saying to her kindergarten teacher, well, and in French, of course, but my mommy is the boss at work and my daddy is the boss at home. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a terrible mother.
I don't know. There seems to be wisdom. There's wisdom in that.
And I'm like, but that was my first reaction was, oh my God, I suck at being a mother. My daughter sees me as, just
Yeah.
a businesswoman.
Yeah, but she
And-
didn't say that.
No, I
you
know.
you thought that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I thought that. It was the pressure that I felt I wasn't being a good mom.
Right.
Instead of celebrating the fact that
She thinks you're the boss at work.
and that my husband is wonderful with his, with the food and
Right.
and everything that he does at home, right? But I felt terrible. So it was what was in my head and what had, I don't want to say what had society imposed on me, but it's what had I picked up along the way, the messages that told me that I wasn't good enough.
Yes.
Because I couldn't, like this whole superwoman, oh, she can do it at home, she can do it at work, etc., is a formula to fail. It also, and I saw it in research I did more recently with my master's degree, it was focusing specifically on entrepreneurial resilience of rural women business owners.
Well,
And
that's
I
right up
had,
your alley.
yeah, exactly. So during the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a lot of stories of business owners who were, I could so see myself in them now, and they were struggling to make all these things happen in their business and so on. And I could see from an outsider's point of view, they weren't letting their partners step up. They weren't creating that void to let them be more active with their kids' education or the online teaching, and it wasn't clear to me at that point, were they feeling guilty? Did they feel it was only their role? Or did they feel, oh, my husband can't handle this? Some of them did say that. But in reality, if we pull it back from the data
Mm-hmm.
and the stories, it came down to couples had not discussed roles
Yes.
very clearly. Obviously, everybody was freaked out with the pandemic anyway,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't enough space between life partners to say, you know what, I really can't handle it right now. I don't care what society says about father roles and mother roles or who does what, when, where.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk about this in our family to make this happen.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. I'm going to pull it back to what you were asking earlier about gender differences. I mean, and I'm not an expert when it comes to the biology. You know, we're the ones as women who give birth, and that's what it is. But then all the other stuff that society
Mm-hmm.
imposes or makes us do, or that we think society wants to make us do, those are things that are roles and situations that I think are evolving.
Yes.
And we need to have those conversations and call it out every once in a while.
Absolutely.
And have a conversation with saying, why are you the one who takes on that particular role, being very active on your kids' school council and so on, when you're doing shift work and trying to do all this stuff with your business and your husband's an educator?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he should be the one stepping into that.
Yeah.
Let him. And so creating those conversations, I think, is important. And knowing that, I think in society, we're still looking at leadership with a different lens that is colored by gender. We've seen it in politics. Talk to any woman in politics who's been, I mean, we love to pick on our politicians,
Of course.
let's face it, but there's a different amount of harassment and abuse towards women politicians, women leaders, I would say. And that's been actually proven time and time again in psychological research. And the criticism towards male versus female leaders is different by both men and women. So there was one study in particular that sticks with me that said so the researchers gave the same scenario to it was psychology students at that point.
Yeah.
And in one scenario, it was a male police chief that had mishandled a situation that led to a riot.
Ooh.
Versus a female police chief. And the criticisms towards, again, it was a fictitious scenario, but the criticism that went towards the female police chief being that she was in a unusual, quote unquote, role for her gender. She was much more heavily criticized
on a personal level
as being incompetent, unable to lead, didn't know what she was doing, et cetera, versus and the scenario was the same. It was just the genders had been reversed.
Yes.
There was another study that also, it was a real person, her biography had been put in front of a group of business students, and they also, in a separate part of the study took exactly her biography but changed her name from Heidi to Henry,
Okay.
like from a female name to a male name.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked business students to read the biographies and say, what do you think? What kind of person do you think this is? If she's Heidi, and then another set of participants, what do you think this person is like if they're Henry? And the research, the findings that came out of that is Heidi, according to these students, was probably much more of a tough person, a bit of a bitch, and must have been ruthless and so on. Whereas the same guy, Henry, but remember it was her biography, must have been really, inspirational to work with and a real leader, etc.
Oh.
So, and this was women and men in this study who were reacting the same way. So even women towards other women will often have that kind of bias, more criticism for leaders, and we assume if they're in that position of power that they are, we view them more negatively. And it's those conversations we need to have as to why is that. I do believe it's changing.
It has to. I mean,
it has to.
Things change and evolve all the time, but how is it changing and where is it going?
Yes.
Right.
And unless we're going to open up and have those conversations around gender, and all sorts of other diversity, important diversity questions, I think we're getting stuck in this. And I think the influence on business itself is that if we don't involve more conversations like that, our businesses are not going to be as sustainable.
Yeah.
Both from an employment standpoint, but also in the kind of work that we produce.
Of course.
So,
and it's very interesting and great answer, by the way. Extremely complete. I loved it. And if I go back, just to conclude this topic, if I go back to the anecdote where your daughter said, boss at home, boss at work, there seems to be a common thread in everything you said. And I think that is where that lack of, I don't want to say equality because I hate that term. I don't even know what it means. But perception, equality, I think it all has to do with what I call our filters. I mean, we all have our filters and we build them ourselves over our lives, and all the information that comes in, no matter what it is, has to pass through that filter and is then processed. And that filter is the common thread here. Your filter made you see what your daughter said as negative first. Luckily enough, the process has kind of saved it. But when it got in, that filter did its naughty work. And all those studies, it's all the same. So we have to accept that it's not a problem of society, because there are a lot of those. Yes, okay. But the bottom line is we are a society as individuals. The problem is our filters. And changing that filter is hard. But I think that the first thing people have to do is be aware of it. How do you process information, right? And I think with that self-awareness comes dialogue, intelligent dialogue. You can't have intelligent dialogue with someone that is not self-aware. You can't.
Yeah.
You're shooting arrows, they're throwing grenades. It does not work. Anyway, but I think that was a very sensible answer and very interesting, because these concepts are being studied and it's very hard to do.
Yep. How do you measure that, right?
Well, yeah, exactly, because the human element is so present.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could talk about this for a long time.
And it's true because, and you call it filters. It could be a lens. I wear those, those clip-ons, on my glasses when I go out there, and it colors obviously and blocks the sun, etc. the same thing,
It
or
is.
what our worldviews are.
Mhm.
It's really interesting, and I think we need to have more of those conversations. And I believe they're happening a little bit more in urban centers right now,
Yes.
and we need to have those in our more rural areas
Yes, because
because
we eventually populate the urban centers.
that's right. And also, that's how we're going to be able to attract talent
Yes.
and workers to our area. So if we're
Mhm.
being more open, because let's face it, we can be very white bread around here, right?
Yeah.
You know, we need to open up in terms of whether it's newcomers who are coming to our
Mhm.
area to be able to work in our shops, in our industries, etc. I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah.
And the conversation around lens
Mhm.
or the filters and
Mhm.
worldviews that we have must be had in order for us to retain the talent
Yeah.
once we
Absolutely.
bring it here.
I
I think
agree.
that's a huge part of it.
And do
Yeah.
you feel you have support from the community, like as business sisters, and but mostly as for the goal you set for yourself and for your organization? Do you feel support?
Um, I probably want to ask what kind of support,
Well,
like the moral
well,
support
I mean,
maybe
I'm
is
sure that
there.
the people that attend the events and all that, I mean, that's clear. You do have support from these people.
Mhm.
They clearly enjoy it. It's a great idea. But do you feel it growing, spreading? That kind of support. Do you feel people, maybe male business owners that want to attend? Do you get that?
I haven't yet.
No,
We've had
I'm
and
surprised.
I'm not sure. It's interesting. I haven't in terms of male business owners wanting to come to our events. We haven't had that. We have
Hmm.
had um, male what I would call supporters in the sense of either from the financial institutions or
Hmm.
insurance companies
Okay.
on the corporate side who are our partners and sponsors for the
Hmm.
events, right? And I remember several times being asked, I'm a guy. Can I still come? Can I
Right?
still attend? And my answer is always absolutely yes, and
Yeah.
especially if you're willing to listen, you know,
But yeah, that should be true for
you know
everyone.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's part of that for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that when it comes to
Sorry.
the aspect of um, inclusivity and those things that we need to have you know, more at the organizational level, at the ecosystem, what I would refer to
Okay.
the ecosystem. I
Gotcha.
think now organizations, I've been in conversations with SDCPR, so
Right.
Société Développement Communautaire oh, I'm going to mess it up, Prescott-Russell, but the CFDC of Prescott-Russell in this area. And I know they've been doing, you know, more consultations when it comes to inclusivity and diversity. And I think when we see those conversations happening, that bodes well because
Hmm.
hopefully there's an awareness that's being created. At the Eastern Ontario Training Board is another one that's having more of those conversations because, you know, our industries need it. If we don't
Hmm.
have that, we're not going to attract the talent that we need to have.
Absolutely.
So all of those organizations that are opening up um, create a certain climate for people to step up and say, yeah, we need to chat about that.
Hmm.
And I think that's very important. And we need to be open to learn more to that as
All the
well.
time
So
about everything.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Never stop learning.
No, please.
Yeah.
So time is flying by. So let's end on advice. Let's say there are women out there that are this close to making their dream come true and becoming a business owner, like going for it. What is your advice to them?
Oh, advice.
A piece of wisdom you
Mhm.
learned that maybe applies to most.
Okay, I'll take you up on that. I think
Okay.
there would be probably three key things, and those are things that came out loud and clear in my research on entrepreneurial resilience of rural business owners. So I can't claim that this is 100%
No.
applicable. It was done on a study of 1,000 women, and you've got a 9 out of 10 chance that this will work.
Mm,
It was qualitative research, so it doesn't work like
I'm
that.
asking for wisdom.
Exactly.
Just
Um,
wisdom.
there were a couple of very practical pieces of advice, quote unquote, that came out of that research study. So first of all, clarity around which hat are you wearing in business or
Mm-hmm.
at home? Because so much of our life is intertwined. We work from home. We uh, bring family stuff at work if we do have an office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is intertwined and
Of
enmeshed.
course.
I worked with my husband for all these years, right? And right now, I employ my daughter in Business Sisters. She's our social media manager.
Awesome.
So, but I always need to bring myself back. And this was part of the research findings that came out. Which hat are you wearing? Are you being mom? Or are you being the business owner? Are you being the business partner? And clarity on which hat I am wearing is so important. I had one business owner who said, when I come home from my work, I literally stop at the door and picture myself taking my hat off, my business hat off,
Mm-hmm.
and hanging it, closing the closet door.
Yes. Be Batman.
So, exact. Oh, I like that. Or, Batwoman. Yes.
Yep.
So closing the door and being who you need to be
Yeah.
in that place and time. So that's clarity around which hat are you wearing. The second part is very much the aspect of who is in your ecosystem. Who are the people that you can turn to in business that will provide help, support, advice? A
Mm.
lot of what is happening with rural business owners is that they isolate themselves. Men or women, they're
What?
working, and they don't have time to, to attend an event or to connect with others. We're go, 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 go. And sometimes you need to take a break and go and connect with other people who may be an entirely different business and area, but you can have someone you can turn to in a period of crisis. We
Mm.
saw a huge amount of difference between those people from a resilience point of view with the number of individuals they had in their network or ecosystem that they could rely on. I had
Mm-hmm.
business owners who were connected with other business owners doing the same thing, but just in a different part of the counties or a different area. And they could ring them up and say, what are you doing? They're competitors, quote unquote, same industry, but they knew enough about each other that they could collaborate or at least ask for advice. And there is a direct correlation between the number of people that you have in your ecosystem, diversity, back to that,
Mm-hmm.
the different types of partners and supporters and
Yeah.
other people that will help you in a period of crisis in your business. And then the last bit is, which was really interesting, is from a resilience point of view, is how much rural business owners had a huge advantage over urban business owners because we're connected to nature. And during the
Oh.
pandemic, you can go for a walk on the trails. You can hop on your bike and, go down the dirt road. You
Oh.
can switch off. You can connect with nature.
Yes.
And we don't tend to talk about that
Mm.
the aspect of connection with our natural environment can bring us real business resilience.
Yeah, that's true because it brings balance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And it's not to say that you can't go for a walk in downtown Toronto, but it might be a little bit
No.
noisier and,
I've lived in the city. I
right?
know exactly what
That
you
sort
mean.
of thing.
Yes.
So that came out of the research we did. So don't forget what you've got right here,
Yes.
whether it's in Hawkesbury or Alexandria or L'Orignal, or it doesn't matter. We need to get out there and celebrate
Yes.
what we have in
Understand
terms
the
of natural
value.
resources and our connection to it, because it can help you down the road. So
That was great advice. Great advice, and it all makes sense.
thank you.
And every single one of those things, I think, is not debatable, which is great because it's all they're simple truths. Surround yourself well.
Yeah.
Realize the value of what you have,
Mhm.
and be Batman or Batwoman.
Yes, exactly.
Who doesn't want to do that? You know,
Yeah.
but it makes sense. Like, yes, don't carry around the weight you don't have to carry when
Yeah, if you
it's not
can.
useful.
It's sometimes a little bit easier said than done.
Of course.
So for anybody who's starting out in that sense, I think we often push those business owners to create the business plan and the numbers and all that stuff. But what's your plan for you as a person and for you
Yes.
in your family?
Yes. Don't forget, if that fails, it all
Yeah.
fails. Right.
Exactly.
How can people reach Business Sisters or learn more about you? What's the best way?
Well, definitely they can find us through social media on Instagram or Facebook. Just search for Business Sisters, Concert en Affaires,
Okay.
and our website, business-sisters.ca. Concert, affaires avec un S.ca.
Excellent.
And sign up for our e-newsletter right there. And yes. So thank you.
Excellent.
This was wonderful. It was great to be here.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I hope that you'll get to have more in-person events soon enough. I hope
We hope so,
22
too.
brings that back on the table because
I hope
it's
so.
super important. Virtual events are very handy, but seeing
eyeball
real
to eyeball,
human beings
Yeah.
makes it so much more meaningful.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Right.
very much.
You're welcome.